Hey, so hi guys, I've been wanting to do this for a while. So this actually is the start of my ultimate Dune Imperium guide. So I'll be covering a lot of things, and there are many places where I should start, and I decided to start on early game objectives. So I'll run through vaguely the whole overview of the guide and actually where we are at. And I think the guide assumes a few things. Assumes that you are playing Rise of X and Immortality, and also assumes that you have played a few times, maybe at least one time, so that you know what the spaces on board are, you know how to play your turn. You know, like, you're supposed to draw 5, you're supposed to play and play a card, send your agent, and then you reveal. So these are things are what I assume for this guide. And so let's jump right in. So hi everyone, welcome to the ultimate Dune Imperium guide. So here we'll be talking about early game objectives. So an overview of the guide, this will be the first part of many part series. I don't think it'll be 4 videos, I think it'll be longer. But in this video, we'll just talk about early game objectives. Later, after that, we'll talk about victory points, and then we'll talk about strategy, and then we'll talk about tactics. Very broad categories, but then I think when I start talking about each video, you'll understand a little bit more. So with this particular guide, right, I'll be telling you some of the things that I think you should focus on early in the game. I think this is especially good for new players, right? I think as a new player, you're often lost in terms of what spaces are good and what should you do. Right, you know that you want to buy good cards, you know that you want to get victory points, but it's not exactly clear how you get to that point. So I will talk about the early game objectives, and then later on I'll talk about how they feed into the victory points. But I'll just talk about these early game objectives and then just keep note of it and then work towards it. So the first early game objective, especially for the Immortality meta, is Swordmaster. Swordmaster is very powerful in Immortality. There are a lot of reasons why, and I have a guide covering Swordmaster, and I think you should come to there. So Swordmaster in the rulebook, it's land strat. Icon means that you use a green card to go there, and then you pay 8 Solari, and then you get an extra agent. Okay, everyone can gain this Swordmaster once, and everyone's kind of fighting to get 8 Solari first. Yeah. So one thing about Swordmaster is the average game of Dune Imperium lasts 7.66 rounds. I think recently I've been having a lot more 7 game rounds, but I think going 7 or 8 is pretty normal. So 7.6 is around there. Okay, if your games are lasting longer than 7-8 rounds on average, right? I think if you get better at the game, your game length will come down. So one thing about getting Swordmaster, right, is that you place an agent on Swordmaster and you get an agent. So the round you place it, right, is action neutral. Okay, you spend an agent to get an agent. Okay, and in terms of payoff, right, if you get it round 2, you get 5.6 actions. If you get it round 3, you get 4.6 actions. You get to spend it round 4, you get 3.6 actions. Spend it round 5, you get 2.6 actions. And so on and so forth. Sometimes you don't even use all your actions, but these are potential benefits, right? So as you can see, I think with all advantages, right, you want to get your advantage early, and you want to get it as early as possible. And Swordmaster, there are ways to get it round 2. So the way to get it round 2 currently in this meta is to go to Smuggle. When you go to Smuggle, you get 1 Solari, and then when you ship up, when you smuggle again and you ship down, right, you actually get another 5 Solari. You get to pay dividends to everyone, right? So you get 5 and everyone collects dividends. So then after that, you have 7 Solari, and then you get 1 more Solari, either by going to Wealth, or either like your leader has an ability to get you Solari, and then that allows you to get Swordmaster round 2. So which is the fastest way, and in Immortality is very strong. Partially because on the pathway to get to Swordmaster, you get to play experimentations twice. So overall, getting Swordmaster second round with Smuggle is very good. This is often done in positions 2, sometimes in positions 3, but sometimes if position 1 gets smuggling, you can't get it from position 2. Then you can get it from position 3 from round 2, round 3. So that's something that you can consider. Okay, so I talk about this all in one of my older videos. It's called the Dune Imperium Immortality meta update and the new OP. I think this was quite early on in Immortality meta, and then we kind of found out that Swordmaster feels very powerful, and then we shared it with everyone, and everyone kind of agreed to it. Okay, so the other ways to get to 8 Solari, right, is that you can use a combination of a Conspire and the combat. So if you get Spice to combat, then after you need extra Solari. If you get Solari to combat, then you need to get extra Spice somehow. So there's a combination of both. Once again, I have another guide where I updated the meta on Conspire. So you can watch this video to learn how do you get Conspire round 2 to get Swordmaster round 3. This can be done in any position, but mainly it's done by player 3. Okay, the next early game objective we'll talk about, right, is Interstellar Shipping. Okay, Interstellar Shipping is a space on the board, right, that you use a yellow icon, you use the spice trade icon, and you go there and you get to have 2 freighter icons. So you move your freighter twice, or what people call it, will ship twice. Okay, so this is the most powerful spot in the game. It was most powerful in Rise of X and is still the most powerful in Immortality because the spaces on the board haven't really changed. Okay, the benefit you get from going up and down is really very powerful. Like, it's the one main way to replenish your troops. Normally, if one person dominates Interstellar Shipping, the game becomes very easy for him, especially if he has Swordmaster. Okay, so how do you get 2 influence with the Spacing Guild to go to Interstellar Shipping? The most straightforward way to do it is to go full space. Okay, so if your early game objective is not Swordmaster, you can think, okay, I'm going to get Interstellar Shipping. I can try to go full space. Once again, this is mostly done by position 2, or if it's blocked by position 1, then you can't really get it position 2. But if position 1 and 2 ignore it, then you can get it from position 3. Okay. So there are other ways you can go about it. So there are 2 main leaders I'll talk about. There are other leaders can do this also, but Baron and Tessia. Okay, so full space plus X. In case of Baron, it will be full space plus Hardy Warriors. So because of Baron's Masterstroke ability, right, you can get 2 influence when you deploy 4 troops, okay, into 2 different things that you set aside at the start of the game. I think the meta is that you probably go Fremen and Spacing, or Spacing and Emperor, either one of the 2. Okay, so you go Hardy Warriors, you put 4 troops in, and then you go full space. So this can be done from position 1 and 2 fairly easily. I think better from position 2, but position 1 is pretty good as well. I think the recent stats show that position 1 is better, but I'm not too sure exactly which is better overall. Okay, and then the most powerful leader at the moment is Tessia Vernius. So Tessia Vernius can use her signet ring, which is called duplicity, right? Where you go down in one faction and you gain 1 influence in a faction where you do not have where you still have the snooper token. So it means that you do not have the friendship yet, for the first time in the game. So what happens is that you can play Diplomacy to full space, then you can play a Diplomacy to Hardy Warriors, or maybe Steel Suits, then you play your Signet Ring, then you change the influence from Fremen into Spacing, and suddenly you have the Spacing Friendship. Okay, so this is one way which Tessia gets to get the friendship for Spacing, and this allows her quick access to Interstellar Shipping. The first snooper granting 1 spice also comes up relevant at times. Okay, because there are other ways you can get faction influence, and one of it is Memo Quarters, which Tessia is very good at getting. Beast can do it as well, Memnon, right? And then there are other ways you can get it by either intrigue cards, bribery, guild authorization. Most of the time you see 100 do it, but if 100 does it, it's just a high roll. Or I think, but the most prevalent case that comes up is probably Skirmish. That happens 25% of the time. You have a faction bump round 1, and if you pair this with a Tessia or a Baron, their game is very strong from round 2 onwards. Yeah, so Skirmish, the faction influence skirmishes are very strong, and if they are present, you should look at how you can get interstellar shipping. Like, it's just an option to do it. Or if memo quarters is there, you can also think about, if, how can I get interstellar shipping. So one thing about interstellar shipping is that you must realize that because of how turn order goes, right? Interstellar shipping is a spot on the board where you want to go with your first action. Because it's your first action, right? You, depending on who's the first player. So let's say the first player is green, right? Player 2, right? And then both green and yellow have interstellar shipping access. Green would be the one to go to interstellar shipping. Okay? When the turn moves down to yellow, then yellow will be the one who gets to go into interstellar shipping, right? But for the rounds of where blue and red start, assuming green and yellow are the only two players with interstellar shipping access, the next player in player order will go into interstellar shipping. So it's always better for you to have players before you not have interstellar shipping access, and the player after you to have interstellar shipping access. I refer to this as like cutting off interstellar shipping access. So because there are not many rounds in the game, and you only look at it from rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe, sometimes 7, but I think mainly it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you can cut off like multiple rounds, maybe 2 rounds is pretty good. Okay, but yeah, so this is one thing you must know about interstellar shipping, and I talked about this also in this video called Let's Talk About Shipping. So all the videos that I talk about, I'll link in the comments, okay? And then you can hear like my thought process about shipping, and let's say if someone gets interstellar shipping access, what should you do as another player? So the third objective, right, that I'll talk about is deck building. So deck building is a key component of the game Dune Imperium. Okay, you start with a deck of 10 cards, and then over the course of the game, you add cards to your deck. Right, in terms of Immortality, you add even more cards because of the Twilight rule. And this deck building element of adding or removing cards, right, it causes your power level to change quite drastically. Okay, so let's talk about deck building. So there are 2 elements of deck building. One is the Imperium rule and one is the Twilight rule. Let's talk about the Imperium rule first. Okay, so how does this go is that, let's say you have 5 cards in hand. If you play 2 of your agent actions, then after that you on your reveal turn, you will have how many persuasion you reveal, which is on the bottom blue section of the cards. So the bottom blue section of the cards, so let's say in this case, if you have convincing, and experimentation, you have 5 persuasion. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you send your agents to, in this reveal you have 5. Okay, there are ways to improve your persuasion, right? And this is mainly done through Tech which Rise of Export, that when you go to, you go there and you get a tech discount, or you get to buy a tech for 1 cost less, and you can, if you spend your dagger there, your net persuasion in hand goes up by 1 because you convert a dagger which has no persuasion into something that has 1 persuasion. So this is something that you can do to increase the persuasion for that round. Okay, the other 2 leaders that kind of interact with the Imperium rule are Helena and Duke Armanicas. So Armanicas, you can grab a cost. You play a Signet Ring, you can grab a card that costs 3 or less, and with Helena you can reserve a card that costs 1, and it will cost 1 less for you. In terms of power level, I think Armanicas is a lot more powerful. Yeah, but I think Helena in the early positions, maybe in position 1, is still pretty good. But the leader that probably does deck building the best actually is Count Ilban. And the reason about it is that when you buy a powerful card, you don't just want to have it in your deck, you want to see it. And to see it, you actually have to draw cards. So what happens is that Ilban has a play pattern where he goes to Wealth, action 1, and then Mentat, action 2. So if he goes to Wealth, Mentat, he draws 2 cards. And assuming he plays it with like his Sea Allies and his dagger, right, he can convert 2 0 persuasion cards into up to 4 persuasion. So it's very powerful, and I talk about it in my Ilban guide, and you can go and check it out. So overall, it causes him to draw more cards, get higher persuasion, and lets him see the powerful cards that he buys more. I think in Immortality, like the Ilban win rate is very good, and his win rate currently is over 30%. Okay, it's second highest in the game, and a lot of it is also due to like how he gets to draw his experimentations, he gets to buy powerful cards, and he gets to use his family atomics to get high quality cards into his deck. So what the family atomics is, right, is a mechanic that's introduced in Immortality. So for those who have played it, you roughly know what it does. It just kind of removes the cards in Imperium row, lets you see 5 new cards. But if you haven't played with it, yeah, that's all it does. Okay, everyone has it. You can play it on any of your turns. Normally, people play on the reveal to buy a better card. So let's say if you have 5 persuasion and then there's no good 5 costing card, maybe there's like a average 4 costing card, then you can use your atomics and hopefully you it's like a slot machine. You get 5 new cards and hopefully you get something good. So the rules of thumb with atomics, right, atomics at 5, and it's better to atomics early than to atomics late. And the 5, and why we do it at 5 is that there are a lot of cards that win you the game at 5. Whereas at 6, right, it's better, but it's not significantly better. Like 4 to 5 is significant, and then 5 to 6 is average. So 5 is the point you want to get at. There are 2 Swordmasters in the deck. If you get them early, round 1, round 2, they are very, very powerful. Alright, but there are also a lot of cheaper costing cards that you can atomics into that are very good. Things like Dissecting Kit in the Shadows, Web of Power, or Twilight Surgeon. You know, you can get any of them and feel very happy about yourself. So always think about atomixing when you're gonna, like, if you haven't like used it and you're gonna reshuffle, you know, you can consider using it even if you have less than 5. But if you have a hand between rounds 1 and 2 with 5, you know, you should think about using atomics in that hand. But I think if any of these cards are there, you should probably settle for these. These are very powerful cards. So one thing about these cards, right, there's another way you can get these cards, right? And you normally the priority of who gets cards is based on turn order. So player 1 gets to buy first, player 2 gets to buy, player 3 gets to buy, player 4 gets to buy. And this assumes that every player takes 2 actions, right? And if everyone takes 2 actions, then whoever buys early gets the better card. So if you early reveal, because you haven't played that additional card and you normally will have more persuasion, and with more persuasion you can pick up any of these cards. I think all these cards that I'm showing now are worth early revealing for. How early might be after 1 action or might be after 2 actions, depends on your own playstyle, and I think normally I think 1 action early revealing is pretty okay, but there are some cases where I think let's say if you have a very dead hand and Swordmaster is there, you might just reveal for it. So the other element of deck building is the Twilight row. So Twilight row, yeah. So this is something that comes along in Immortality, that whenever you play reveal and experimentation, you get to get a cube. Right, green cube, or not really green cube, but you know, it's it's on the research track and is denoted through the game as these green cubes. Okay, so you can use these to cash in for either scarabs or cards. Okay, and these are the 3 most powerful cards, and if you see them in the row, you should probably work towards them. Okay. So the way you can get it early, right, is to go to Still Suits and Research Station. Okay, Still Suits gets you extra water, Research Station gets you the early research that allows you to move into the research track and get your extra green cube. So coupled with your 2 starting experimentations, when you reveal them, you get another 2 green cubes, and then that's how you get 3 green cubes to buy these various cards. However, I think because of how the game is, right, I only advise it with certain hands. That if you only have a Seek Allies and a Signet Ring, or Seek Allies and a Reconnaissance. And the reason I say this is that if you play it with other hands, if you play it with a Diplomacy and let's say a Signet Ring, right, you can result in very bad hands that will not only like make you miss the buy, right, but and also it messes up your how much cards you draw, and then you only see the cards you buy very late. So you must have like so the ideal hand is you must have Seek Allies, signet ring or reconnaissance, and 2 experimentations. Okay, you must have these 2, or you must be confident that you can draw into one of the experimentations if you have 1 in hand already, right? And let's say if I had the previous hand, right, and I draw 2 cards at research station, I can end up with convincing, experimentation, dagger, seek allies. So I have a reveal of 3. Right, and then when I finally let's say I buy a card and I finally shuffle my deck, I have 8 cards in my discard, and when I draw 5 cards, then I have 6 cards in my deck. And then let's say even then, right, I finally have my 3 cubes to buy. I buy a Taitsu card, and then after that, I don't see the card round 3 because I still have so many cards in my deck. I only see the cards round 4, round 5. So this is one way that I think a lot of people think about getting these strong Taitsu cards. But if you cannot get it within that round 1, right, I suggest you not pursue this route of Steel Suits Research Station. And if you were to do it, you must do it with Seek Allies, 2 experimentations in hand, and blue access. Right? So the other way that you can go about it is just to go Arakeen, and then hopefully you just cycle into your experimentations faster than everyone else, and then you can buy the card. Okay, one thing to note about the previous strategy, right? The only card I'll do this for is Stitch Horror. I think the Scientific Breakthrough and Python are not strong enough for you to go that route as well. So very niche strategy, but in overall, the Taitsu rule, I think these 3 cards are worth like just cycling your deck a little bit faster so that you can purchase these cards. They're very strong. Okay, the best leader to do this with actually is Ilban as well. So Ilban actually is the premium deck building leader, I think, in the game. Because when you go to Mentat and go to Wealth Mentat, once again you draw 2 cards, and because you draw 2 more cards and you cycle into your experimentations quicker, you're more likely to be able to get the cubes needed to buy the 3-costed Taitsu cards in a row. Okay, so finally we're on the 4th objective. So first, you try to get Swordmaster. If you can't get Swordmaster, you try to get Interstellar Shipping Access. Interstellar Shipping Access and Swordmaster, I think, are quite interchangeable. Then getting good cards I think comes secondary, and a lot of times the cards that you buy are just a product of luck. You know, you just see how much persuasion you have and just buy the best card. But if you miss the first 2, you can consider working hard to the 3rd one to buy strong cards. So, but if you miss all of that, you can always accumulate resources in the game. And the resources you want to accumulate is to collect spice. You generally want to collect spice when there's when the place stacks up spice. So so every round when no one collects spice will build up on that, and the places are worth going to. So if you cannot get any of the early game objectives, try to get spice. For Imperial Basin and Haga Basin, I would think that the best time to do it, right, is when you have at least 1 spice accumulated there. When 2 spices is accumulated at those spots, I think it is very good. And it's definitely worth going as your first action. Whereas for Great Flat, I think when there's 2 spies there, it is a good action. So these are general rules. But let's say if you needed to collect spies to go to Conspire, right? Then your objective is for Swordmaster. Then you don't need to follow these rules of like when to collect spies. You just collect enough spies for you to get Swordmaster. Then your early game is a success. Okay, but if you cannot do any of that, then you might want to collect water and wait for the time to harvest the spice. And this normally happens round 3. I think round 3 is probably the best time to do it, early in round 3. So normally that is denotated by water. So the other early game objectives you can work towards is just drawing intrigues. So intrigues, right, they can convert into points. And drawing them early helps you to shape your game. Sometimes it's early game advantages, sometimes it's just something, some sort of side quest that you have to go on to get these points. But drawing them early is something else that you can consider in the early game. So if you're unsure what to do, like just picking up spies, picking up any random intrigues, is a good thing. And the last thing I'll talk about is victory points. So early game, you also can get victory points, let's say through the skirmish, mainly through the skirmish, right? So early game VPs are something that you can work on early game and put in resources to get. I think early game, like victory points are worth its weight as gold throughout the entire game. But based on the current meta, I think if you put in more than 4 troops for a skirmish, it's expensive. Like you put in 4 troops and play an intrigue, I think it's a very expensive VP. So so do note that if you put in so much resources here, you are actually missing out on the other early game objectives, right? And that if you do put in all these resources into VPs, later on midway through the game, you'll feel that you feel yourself slowing down a fair bit. So once again, Swordmaster, Interstellar Shipping, deck building, and resources. So these are the 4 early game objectives that you should work towards. Why you should do it, I'll talk about it later in another video. I think it's all about how these early game objectives turn into victory points. But if you're wondering what you should be doing with your actions, right, you should be thinking about these 4 things, right? So if you can't get Swordmaster, you should be thinking about Interstellar Shipping. If you can't get Interstellar Shipping, you should be thinking about deck building. And if you can't deck build as well, you should be thinking about resources. Okay, it should just be like one after another. So based on what the player before you does, then you see what pathways to these early game objectives are available to you. Then you kind of work towards it. Okay. So in the next video, we'll talk about victory points. We'll talk about the bunch of them that are listed here. And then eventually, I'll also talk about how we're going to link the early game objectives to the victory points, and how do different ones connect to one another. But I think this video should suffice for a new player or someone who's learning, right, to understand like what you should be pursuing in the early game. And if you watch good players play, you will be seeing them try to get to one or the other. They will be either trying to get Swordmaster, trying to get Interstellar Shipping, trying to deck build, and trying to get resources. And normally all of this is done between rounds 1 to 3. Okay, a lot of it is done, I think by the end of round 2, you should be able to see people like almost get one of these early game objectives. Okay, so watch people from rounds 1 to 3. I think there are a lot of videos on hidden assets and my own channel that you can watch people play. And I'll be using these concepts as well in my future videos to talk about, let's say, the advantages that various players got and how that translates into wins. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you look forward to the rest of the series. Next up, we'll be talking about victory points and some wise words that I think Holy Boss has said. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you look forward to the next video. Peace. Hey, so hi guys, some postscript, right? So there are 2 announcements that I want to make. So first, right, is I'm hosting another tournament. So this tournament is slightly different from what we've previously hosted. So one big issue about playing high level or quality Dune Imperium games, right, with people of your skill level, is that we don't have a sizable enough player pool to have matchmaking. So a lot of times that whoever's online just plays. You have very strong players, very weak players. When you have a mixed skill level in the games, sometimes the games can be very runaway in nature. So so when we organize tournaments, we try to get the higher level players together to play. The issue with that, scheduling is hard. Like I play from Asia in Singapore, and just trying to schedule this game with like Europeans and Americans, it has been just very tough. Like someone has to like sacrifice their time and it has picked a time that is bad for them. So what we're gonna do, right, is we're gonna host this tournament in some way that that allows people to play at a time that is comfortable to them. So this will be very similar to how like GPI groups are done. So you just play and you pick a time that you want, right? And then you play at that time slot. So the day of the week that y'all play as a group, y'all decide. But once a week, I will schedule a game for, let's say, the group of y'all. So the way I'm going to look at it is that, let's say, for that time slot, right, the top 8 players in terms of rating for, let's say, Season 2, right, y'all will all be in one group, and then y'all play, like, let's say, 6 games across a month and a half. And after the month and a half, then whoever's top table, like, kind of wins game, or will kind of like win some small award, and this is only at a particular time zone. So then we'll duplicate it over like these maybe 4 or 5 time zones, depending on what the interest is, right? And then you have like you have multiple high level games that are being played. Then also, right, I think there are a lot of interest for beginners to play as well, right? Beginners who want to play in a competitive setting, you can join this, right? And if let's say you're relatively new, we can put you into the next league. So the next league will be a larger list of players. So let's say depending on how many players there are remaining, right, we'll put them all in one list, and then we'll just arrange games. Y'all play once a week, and then so you can have that competitive element on the game. We can get players to cast it, we can watch it, and then we can like publicize your own achievements. So maybe one pro league and one amateur league, even though there's no money involved. Yeah, so if you want to play in it, please sign up in the link below. I've posted times based on 3-hour intervals, based on the most popular times that games are played based on the rank data that I have. Yeah, so do take a look at it, and if it's interesting to you, do sign up. I initially set the cutoff for signups to be this Saturday, but I think I'll push it on to next Saturday, and then we can try to arrange from there. But I think it's based on interest of community, so I'm not sure if this is reaching out to enough people, but I will try to put this out there for more people. Yeah, so do sign up. There's a Mod Melee coming up as well on the 19th of August, and if you want to sign up for that, the links will be below in this description. There'll be a lot of links here. I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy playing. I hope you enjoy the rank season, and thanks for supporting the channel. See you.